Tim Gavin.
Finally.
Welcome to the Forward One podcast.
Grateful to have you here, brother. You're one of a kind, and fortunate to call you a good friend.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for chasing me, and I apologize.
It's all good. You're a busy man.
Well, I wouldn't be talent if I wasn't hard to get, you know?
You got to go after what you want, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So you're an amazing realtor, and that's what we want to hear about. But one of the things that's super cool is the diverse backgrounds that people come from, and I would love to hear. I just watched Dogtown and Z-Boys, and I was like, why isn't Tim Gavin in this? But then I realized it was the movie was put out in 2002, and it was filming guys that are now old like me.
Well, first, yeah, thanks for having me. You guys are. Josh is awesome. I have a personal relationship with Josh, but I've always heard your name, so you're an absolute legend in the business, which is funny because part of your question, growing up skating, like I've always had fans or, you know what I mean? Uh-huh. When I first got into real estate 9 or 10 years ago, I remember like fanning out on real estate agents. And I would call them and hit them and ask them questions as if I was like a producer and in the business. And I remember a few in particular who were really cool because I always thought like these, they were going to be like super mean or lame about.
Uh-huh.
But Craig Nizick was super rad. Dennis Chernoff was super cool when I called him. But yeah, when I first got into business, I was on the other side. Like I was the guy. But when, and I was like fanning out on real estate agents, I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy.
Yeah.
But my background was, to give you the long-winded background, my dad was in the Air Force. So we moved around a lot. Mm-hmm. I could never get acclimated as a kid. And I was born in Boise.
Wow.
I don't think there's one listener who's born in Boise.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
We
born in Boise, moved to Germany when I was like 1.5. Then I moved to Miami when I was 4. Then moved to Phoenix when I was about 7. And that's where I was introduced to skateboarding. I remember seeing the group of kids, these certain group of kids skateboarding down the street. I was like completely fascinated by it. In my personality, I'm very OC. I'm very extreme, very obsessive, so when I started, I was locked in. That's what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Right out of the gate? I mean, from pretty real early on.
Real early. Okay. Like I knew it was a crazy thing, but I'm super grateful for it because for me, it's like I was able to be passionate about something really early. Mm. I mean, it's hard to become passionate about something later in life, you know what I mean? So I was kind of introduced early, and I'm super grateful for that because from then on, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I was so obsessive about it. And, when you do something for work, to be great at it, you got to love it, right? Because you got to put in the hours.
Yep. Consistency.
You really do.
Yep.
So with skateboarding, it was never work. Like, it was that passion, right? But I ended up doing it professionally. I moved out here to Los Angeles on my own when I was 15.
Wow.
I just never went back to school. And it was crazy. Like I moved into an apartment in Hollywood with this guy, Chris Pastors from New York. I lived in the dining room, paid the guy $200 a month, had my little bed, my little Kate Moss posters on the wall. Yeah, my little Drakkar cologne. I remember
Drakkar cologne. Wow, that brings back.
I hate to admit I wore it.
Oh my God.
Hey, we're all in sales. We all wore Drakkar, baby. Right. But yeah, ended up turning professional in 1992.
Wow.
Yeah, I made it.
And you were how old then?
18.
Okay.
I was making like $1,500 a month, and I was saving money.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like I was loving it.
That's probably unique though, because just from the way that goes when you get money and you're young, kids generally spend it.
Well, all my time was dedicated to skateboarding, so I didn't have the time to spend it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Did you have were there certain, in business, I'm always looking at KPIs. So, it might be, and then you got leading indicators and lag indicators. So the lag indicator, the lag indicator, sorry to break skateboarding down into business, but then you get your lagging indicator, which in real estate sales, we're like, okay, so, I want to net $1 million a year. And then you sort of work out how many deals you need to do. And then the leading indicators, like how many calls am I going to make? How many contacts am I going to make? When you're refining your tools as a skateboarder, is there like, I got to be able to do like this killer trick, or how did you figure out your path to professional?
And then also, before you answer that, like, what was the goal, right? And were there particular people you were modeling? Because we're also big believers in find someone who's doing it at an extraordinary high level and model them so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
When you're a professional athlete, like if you have a goal, it never remains your only goal. That's the problem, is the satisfaction or it's never enough. It's a sick thing, actually. And it could actually be toxic to some degree. But with skateboarding, it's during my time, which was the 90s, early 90s, it was very progressive. But there was this format of skateboarding called switch stance.
Switch stance?
Yeah, so it's basically anything you could do. Do you snowboard or do you?
So as soon as you said that, I don't snowboard, but I understand.
Okay, so
from
anybody has a stance, whether if it's your right foot forward or left foot forward. So anything you would do regular, you do it backwards. Switch. I had a very hard time with that because I'm not ambidextrous. I can't do anything with my left side of my body. So right then and there, when that became the new thing in terms of being progressive with skate, I couldn't do it. I was like, I can't keep up. I can't do it. And a lot of people say I retired really early, which was around 1996.
Oh, and that was
my word.
You're like, hey, you know what?
I can't hang.
Wow.
I can't hang. Yeah.
That's cool. You had a lot of fans. You had sponsors. You had a lot going on.
Yeah. I was sponsored by Vans shoes, which they're the best because I still get shoes today. They still send us shoes. And then, I had a board sponsor and other variety of sponsors. Nowadays, because Tony Hawk did the 900 in the X Games, which is similar to the analogy would be Tiger Woods. He's the Tiger Woods of golf.
Oh, yeah.
He brought in a ton of money into skateboarding. Now these guys are finally being considered athletes, and they're making well into 7 figures.
For sure.
Which
and
is
the video
great
games.
for them, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
Yeah, because they're getting non-endemic sponsorship, which corporate sponsorships, and they're actually making a good living. Whereas, I was making my little $2,000 a month, right? And it's like,
what did you do when you switched? Because one of the things you said was, hey, I basically dropped out of school in order to become a pro skateboarder.
For me, I was always motivated by, you're either motivated by inspiration or desperation. Early in the years, I was motivated by being completely inspired of skateboarding, right? That was my motivation. I was inspired by skateboarding. That's what I wanted to do. I had a goal, turn professional, and then, like I said earlier, the goal changed, it evolved. But I always had this sense of desperation. I always wanted, I remember having friends with nice homes, certain snacks in the pantry, honestly. And I was like, God, I want that one. I'm going to have. So I've been motivated by desperation, knowing I dropped out of high school at an early age, knowing I was surviving on my own at an early age. I literally have been on my own for so long. Even when I lived at home, my parents had a night gig. They were never around.
Wow.
So literally on my own. So I've always had that scarce, like that mindset of lack, which isn't a good thing. But it motivated me. So I've always been motivated by kind of
Was there
desperation.
a particular fear you had? Usually when I hear I'm motivated by desperation, there's a fear of something.
Well, with anything that I do now, whether it be, and I've kind of ingrained this to my kids with youth sports, is to be the best. Whatever you do, do it at a high level. My first year of real estate, I started with this team, and he asked, what is your goal for the year? Is it 3 million, 5 million, 5 million? I said, I have 20 million. He's like, okay. That year I did 27 million, my first year.
Wow.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, which was
Extraordinary.
amazing.
Most, the 95% of people, for 99 of real estate agents never do that.
Yeah.
Forget about the first year.
Well, the first deal was a friend of mine referred to me to his friend's mom. This older Asian lady in Gardena. It was a $500,000 sale. And I knew nothing. And during the escrow, the lender said there's lead-based paint in the whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what does even that mean? So I go to the house at 9 o'clock at night by myself in Gardena. First deal. I chip off some paint off the wood of the window panel outside. I took it to Sherwin-Williams, got it tested, no lead-based paint. Took the results, scanned it to the lender. I thought this is what you did.
Well,
And the lender goes, you did all of this? And I go, yeah, there's no lead-based paint. The deal went through. I closed the escrow. That was my first deal.
Initiative, baby. Yep.
you saw a hurdle between you and getting where you wanted to be,
Never
which is
heard.
close the
Yeah,
deal.
it was a hurdle, but I don't see
No,
it.
but I mean, then I'd like to hear how you reframe that for sure. But there's something standing in the way of you and closing, and you're like, how am I going to solve that issue?
Always,
And then and that's how somebody who's so new at the game is doing the things that nobody else is doing. You're like, what's standing? So I like what you're getting ready to say, which is you don't see it as a hurdle. So what do you see that as?
Well, it's because, I'm so grateful for skateboarding, truly. And the reason why it's given me everything, my personality, my network, my everything has come from that environment. There was a time in my life where I was very insecure about being a skateboarder, that it was this juvenile thing and like, I don't know. But now I'm just so grateful for it. But because I was so challenged by skateboarding and trying a trick hours after hours after hours and having that satisfaction of doing it, there's nothing better. Mm-hmm. Money can't buy it. There's nothing that will replace that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Overcoming, as I always say, overcoming a challenge and recognizing what you're capable of and creating that as a habit and building that grit and resilience.
Right. Absolutely.
It transcends in every area of your life.
Even though it was my first deal and I didn't have perspective, I was so like, wow.
Desperation, you used the word. I said fear of something. I'm putting my own words into it, but you tell me otherwise. Is it like a fear? Like, is it a fear of embarrassment? Is it a wanting of acceptance? Like you.
So the one thing that I want to convey here is, there's negative connotation with the words like desperation or fear or whatever, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a motivating term as well, and I think that's how I kind of perceive those words. But there's always been this fear of, not having what I wanted always at an early age. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Which was, look, the most important thing that I've wanted forever was a family. Every night I would go to bed and pray, like, all I want in life is a family. All I want in life is a family. You know what I mean? It's, happiness for me is truly, not to sound cliche at all, is really, and it's a practice for me every day, is to live in gratitude. Mm-hmm. Because I remember when I first got enough money to buy a house, I bought a house in Redondo Beach, and I was so happy. Great house. Mm-hmm. The moment I moved in, I wanted a bigger house. I swear to you, it was the oddest thing. It wasn't enough. You know what I mean? So I think I always have that. Like, I'm constantly chasing.
It's funny. Like,
you know what I mean?
because a couple things resonate significantly to me. First of all, everyone has fears. It's human nature. The question is, what do you do with fear? Mm-hmm. Do you use it as ammunition to propel you forward, or do you retreat and run away from it? And that's it. So to your thing is like, fear can be the best thing in the world if you use it as fuel and ammunition. Correct. And I have tons of fear, and I've created a habit of leaning into the fear, right?
Correct.
And then per what you said about gratitude, I mean, it's like so funny because you have a little boy, he's 6, I believe, am I right? Okay. And Max is 10, and I'm like, he always wants more. And I'm like, be grateful for what you have. So it's so I want to hear your perspective a little bit more and let you finish that about, hey, I got the house. I live in gratitude every day, but I wanted more. Yeah. So,
it's funny because I have this discussion with my kids every day. You know what I mean? But it's the one thing I don't want to do is, it's okay to chase, you know what I mean? And not be satisfied. You know what I mean? There's a fine line there to be grateful, because it could look a lot worse, but it's okay to have high goals too. You
aspirational.
Know what I mean? Yeah.
I will say this, and I couldn't agree more. You can have both, and I would and I think I can speak for Paul and I'm extremely
I know
grateful
that about
for
you.
what I have and the relationships I have, and I'm
For
not
sure.
materialistic at all, and I'm always striving, man. I mean,
I
you
know.
can, it's like perpetually
I
raise
know
the
that
bar,
about you.
right? So, but I'm extremely grateful. I mean, I think anyone who spent any time around me, like I don't need more to be fulfilled. I certainly would like more. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. There's always opportunity for growth, because otherwise, then what are you living for?
Right.
And there's also, as I've managed and worked with so many different people, I'll ask them, what is their big why? What's the thing that's driving you? And it doesn't matter. I found it doesn't matter as much what their big why is, as much as it does how attached how hard are they going to go after that?
Right.
And so, desperation can drive, and I think you can hold those two things at the same time, of being very grateful for what you have and recognizing it, and also knowing that there's more. There's nothing wrong with that, and that creates a great. I think it creates a great life in terms of the stepping stones. And one of the things you said too, it made me think of Rick Pitino's book, and the thing I remember was PhD, which is Poor, Hungry, and Driven. Those are the kids he was looking for. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be
Rick
poor.
Pitino, that's his name?
Yeah, PhD. He's like Poor, Hungry, and Driven. And it doesn't have to be poor necessarily financially, but you got to have that thing that's driving you. And that's where it, because we all get to a place where we don't want to, prefer to not do more. Like, what's that thing?
Mm-hmm. You can be grateful and not content.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's the key.
For
right?
sure. And you know what? What I had written down really was, you mentioned that like you're doing these tricks and it would take you it could take 100 tries, it could take 1,000 tries, but when you finally got it done, you're like, wow. And if it were me, I'd be like, wow, I did that thing. And but how do you, as a professional, how do you know you're going to be able to get out there and do that thing when the money's on the line?
Because you love it. You know what I mean? When you love something, you naturally progress. It's inevitable. You know what I mean? But, similar to Kobe Bryant, I'm sure when he had a goal, as soon as he achieved that, there was a new goal.
Yeah.
It's never enough.
Yeah.
And the bar is never set once.
Mm-hmm.
But, that first deal, after that first deal, I became obsessed with real estate. It became an obsessive thing.
The same way as with skateboarding.
Yeah, and what happened was I got totally obsessed with the art of the deal. Mm-hmm. I love, there's a creative side to sales.
Absolutely.
Real estate, right? When you're negotiating deals and call it a hurdle or whatever it may be, you can get very creative, right? But it always comes down to problem solving and getting the deal done, right? And during a transaction, there's so many things that come up and that involve creativity, hustle, resolve, whatever it is. So when you get to the finish line, it's just like, holy shit, very similar to landing that trick. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. It's the same feeling. And
it's just overcoming
satisfaction.
challenges.
And yeah. The only thing with real estate is there's a paycheck at the end of it.
Well, I also know that just by the way you described your first deal, that you didn't even want me to call it a hurdle, but you did that one thing that nobody else was going to do, which you didn't even see that as you didn't know this isn't what people do. You're like, what's standing between me and landing that trick? And then
because to be honest, if that happened again today, I'd do the same thing.
Yeah,
I would go and
that's cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you find what you're looking for when you're looking for the solutions, which is another way of saying what you're doing. You're going to go find them.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, if I've been doing this for 10 years, I would say I've probably fallen out of escrow twice.
So you do that first deal, you overcome some hurdles that you may or may not even have been aware of. You get a great sense of satisfaction. Did you say $20 million right before you ever did that deal? Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so what was your mindset? What did you learn from that deal, if you can put yourself back there? And what was the thought process moving forward to get to the remaining $26.5 million for that year?
I learned that, ironically enough, this is not that hard as I thought it was going to be. I'll backtrack a tad to get me to that first deal, which is after I retired from skateboarding.
Right, that's the progression.
In 1995, I started my own shoe company.
That's right.
Prior to that, because I've always been nervous and scared and like, I got to do something. When switch stance started happening, I was like, oh, fuck, I can't do this. I went and got my GED. I was like, oh, this skateboarding could be over for me.
How many years as a professional, how many years had you been professional when that switched?
4 years.
4 or 5 years, yeah.
Okay.
Which isn't a long career. And a lot of people think I retired too early. But I had a lot of insecurities because I was always regarded as one of the best and the most progressive forever. So when I didn't feel that way, I was like, I'm done. Because I was really insecure. If I had the mindset I have today with a little more maturity, I would have done it longer. But I went and got my GED and I got my bartending license. And I said, you know what? One thought could be move to Hawaii, be a taxi driver. This is 95, 99. Be a taxi driver and a bartender. And who knows, that may be a happier life for me.
Life could be good.
That might be enough for me, you know what I mean? Like live in paradise. But I ended up meeting what happened to be my partners. And I started a footwear company called DVS Shoes in 1995. And what I was always good at is establishing relationships. Very good at that. And
how do you do that? How do you do that?
I think it's a natural thing for me, honestly. But I think it comes from a good place.
Sure.
And it's genuine.
Coming back, how do you define when you say establishing relationships? Be a little more explicit on what that means.
To give you an example, when I retired from skateboarding, I had to answer that question. Skateboarding was very hardcore, this little world. Whether if you watch Dogtown and Z Boys.
Oh yeah.
Skateboarders couldn't even talk to people that weren't skateboarders because it was our own culture, language, style, anything. And if you didn't look apart or dressed or talked, you couldn't even talk to the other people. I was different. I actually lived with surfers, with skateboarders and surfers. I'm like, what, surfers? So I was always bringing different people together. I moved all over LA, living with people, establishing relationships with all sorts of these different people that my hardcore group of skateboarders would never do. But I brought them into these other to these other worlds and meshed the two. And so I was always good at that naturally. Connecting, but doing it without any intent.
In a genuine way.
In a genuine way, yeah.
And I see you finding that point of connection as we have got to know each other, even just a little bit. Just finding that, when you walk away from somebody and you enjoyed the interaction, which I did. I just walked away. I felt good about that. You just feel good. And
it's funny?
There's something
when
about
I walked
that.
away, I felt that you felt good about
That's
that.
there you go.
You know what I mean?
I love it. And that's the sort of meta or next level of that is then having the awareness of, well, how did I land on that person? Yeah. And sometimes the hardcore salespeople, and we interview them too. You've got your relational, and then you've got your like super driver. And the super driver that's really successful will put that sort of relational thing, they know they need to have it, so they make it happen a little bit, but they're really about like get in, make the call, get the sale, close the deal. But the people that are really natural at the relational thing, they have a sense, I think, and you have that for sure. It's not.
I think, and it was a gift, but it really did help me set those shoe companies up. Well, DVS was the first in 1995, and then my thought was, I have so many friends that are so highly regarded in skateboarding. How can I can't put them all on the same shoe company. So what do I do? So I started another company, which was a clothing company called Maddox Clothing in 1998. And then what I did there is I said, all right, I'm just going to start a distribution company which would house multiple brands. And I want to keep bringing my friends over here and just keep creating brands. Because why would a kid who dropped out of high school that only knew skateboarding have any idea he could even start a shoe company?
And one of the things you talked about was, having these insecurities. And when I think about somebody that has a lot of insecurities or drove you out of professional skating or, and those insecurities are real, that's what makes me say like, okay, so how does this kid who left home at 15, did this great thing, really excelled at it, now you're like, I'm out, I'm going to shift. How do you break through the insecurity of, now I'm going to do a shoe company?
You never break through insecurities. It's actually led me to, which I am totally, willing to speak about, which is alcohol and drug addiction. Thankfully I'm clean and sober today, and that goes back to living in gratitude as well. But insecurities have haunted me my entire life. And they continue to do that today. But I'm okay with them, you know what I mean? Like I've embraced that not only do I have them and I'm aware of them, but I truly know everyone has their stuff.
Everyone has insecurities.
So, yeah, I've never been insecure about my insecurities. You know what I mean? But the way I've been able to shift that today is I'm grateful for my insecurities. You know what I mean?
Reframing that.
Yep.
So, but back, and I started another shoe company in 1999. And that 15-year-old kid that dropped out of high school to move out to California on his own grew those companies to 120 million in global sales.
Yeah,
global sales with 6 or 7 subsidiaries overseas, managing over 200 employees, I believe. Had a great run doing that. Loved it. Absolutely loved building a brand and building business. Ended up selling those in around 2007, 2008. Tried to start other shoe companies after, but during that time, the timing wasn't right. Adidas, Nike, Vans, they owned it at that point. You couldn't compete with them financially. As well, everybody was buying online. So it was harder to cultivate a brand, pioneer a brand, in a mom and pop shop because they weren't as many mom and pops to really pioneer a brand.
For sure.
So, so I got into real estate. And the reason why I got into real estate is I was always inspired by real estate. Like when I was skateboarding professionally, I wanted to be an interior designer. I've always been, and everybody, oh, yeah, so lame. But I always like going in. Whenever I'd go to a house during that time, I'd always look, what style it was. You know what I mean?
I love it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What's your favorite style?
I really like mid-century.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Mid-century architecture, and then some of the mid-century furniture I just love.
Spanishes are really growing on me right now too.
Me too.
Yeah, I love
original Spanish, not the
a good original Spanish is really growing on me too.
Pre-1940, 1940s and before, like a real.
Yeah. So you said you had that the design piece was a seed that you had recognized. Was there any particular, coming back to like models of agents? Were there any particular people that inspired you, whether either before you got started or early on when you got started? Like I know you well enough. I'm
There's
sure
one guy in particular, Kevin Sturdivant, and social media was, a big part of why I'm in real estate too, because I remember seeing Kevin Sturdivant on social media, and he made real estate look cool, to be honest. And you know what? More than that, he made it look accessible. So I hit up Kevin, and he's the one who kind of made it a reality. Like, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't know where to start.
Did you know him before?
I didn't know Josh
also...
Spitzen back
right.
then. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, really, I didn't know anybody.
Did you know him personally, or like?
No.
And the skateboard connection is
though.
Right.
He was.
Is that coincidental?
Look, Kev, you're
Okay.
probably going to see this. Love you. I mean, come on. me, Kevin.
Okay, so that's I don't know.
He was aspirational.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that
That's
Could
the
skate, but
polite way.
he wasn't a pro.
and that was completely coincidental. Like his connection to skateboarding and yours had nothing to do with your.
You know, it was a unilateral. As he took elements from skateboarding, which he was inspired by, and applied them to real estate, I was the opposite. You know what I mean? Like, I took what he was doing, and he inspired me to get into real estate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was on the other side. I was the pro skater, which.
But you didn't know him through the skateboarding.
No,
world.
not at all.
Okay.
No.
Did you see him?
He looked accessible to
That's-
me
yeah.
because shared relationships or the common
Right.
relationships we had
Right.
from skateboarding.
And it was less.
You remember I told you, I prefaced this whole thing by saying skateboarding has given me everything?
Oh, yeah.
It constantly does every day.
And then you find a guy that would look up to. Hey, here's a realtor that I could look up to. Who would look up to a pro skateboarder.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I was trying to be, an A+ table tennis player, and I got to about B-, which
Really?
is not bad. And there was a guy that was, number one. He had achieved number one in the United States, and he was looking for business advice. And he saw my social media.
There you
and
go,
he's
same
like,
thing.
hey, I'm going to be playing in the LA Open, which I played in too. See, because they call it an open. You know what I'm saying? So, doesn't mean I was good. But he was playing in the pro level LA Open. He said, hey, I'm playing in the LA Open. I'd like to meet you and chat about business. And I looked the guy up, and I'm like, wow, wait a minute. This guy was number one in the United States 5 years ago. Next thing you know, I'm playing with him in my
That's awesome.
backyard.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And Kevin is very non-traditional, which is probably the part that was inauthentic, and so that was probably the real appeal, I'm gonna guess, to you, right? Because it wasn't the stereotypical suit and tie,
And what's cool is Kevin, he inspired me and motivated me to do real estate. Not discourage me or not, it's tough or, he made it really cool.
Fun.
Yeah.
And I gotta know. It's back to a question that we asked, but I want to drill into it, and that is, Kevin says to you, like, are you going to do like 2 or 3 million? Because at a $500,000 price point, you're talking about 6 transactions. That's good for a first year realtor. And you go, no, I'm going to do 20 million.
Yeah.
Oh.
How did you get from transaction 1, which you said kind of fell into your lap, which,
Yeah, easy. Easy to answer the question. Not easy. It wasn't easy to get. It was a total hustle. A total hustle. Every night I would go through my phone and I would pick a letter and I would text everyone in my phone.
Wow.
And I have thousands of contacts.
Of course.
So you
And I
really
would start with
leveraged.
A, and I would just spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, hit everyone in A, and I wouldn't stop until I got through the letter. But I'd go through A and I'm in real estate, love to help, blah, 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 blah.
What did?
And as I was doing that, I was getting referrals, I was getting opportunities, I was getting at bats. So
what did
it
the
kept
text?
me doing it. I got to Z. I did the alphabet.
What did the text say is what he's going to ask.
Yeah.
The text was, hey, I'm in real estate now. I'd love to be of service. How can I help? If you or anyone is looking or buying, I'd love to help, something in that regard, not verbatim. But really coming at an angle of just letting them know that I'm in it. You know what I mean? The number one thing came back to haunt me, which was the insecurity of, oh my God, Tim, this is so random. Tim's hitting me up about being in real estate. I got 3 or 4 hit back, people responding. Yeah, so-and-so's doing this, so-and-so's doing that. Hit this guy up. Oh, my sister's doing it. There you go. The insecurity just creeped in for no reason. And I ended up but it didn't stop me. And I kept going through all the letters. And as I was going through the letters, I was getting referrals. So it enabled me to make it to the alphabet.
Wow.
A lot of people, there's a lot of rejection in a very successful sales practice. And one of the things, I'll ask people like, what's the worst that could happen if you reach out to your sphere of influence? And the answer is kind of like some terrible stuff, like somebody could say like, dude, you're a skater, how did you handle that transition? It's just like not fearless because you were nervous.
I would say 99% of the response was, "Oh my God, no brainer, Tim. You're perfect for that." You know what I mean?
I love it.
So yeah, they came back and had my back.
Right.
Or they really meant it. And I think they really meant it. I really think because I do, and again, I'm very humble. I really feel that I am good in real estate because there's nothing better after a deal knowing that you helped somebody. Like that is what keeps me going today, honestly, because you tend to start going transaction to transaction. You know what I mean? But if I can feel like I'm helping somebody, that's the fulfillment I get out of this right now. But I truly do think the response from everybody was like, "Awesome, you're gonna be great at that. Go get them," type thing.
Because they
And
know.
it was encouraging.
I know you well enough to know because they know you're grateful. You're extremely resilient. You're enthusiastic. You're real. You're authentic. Like that's how you build trust in anything.
Absolutely.
And that's what
You
real
talk
estate
about that
is.
a lot. And
Yeah.
Building trust.
Yeah, and building trust is a product of being consistent, being resilient, being authentic, being real, and doing whatever needs to get done to create value and a solution.
Yeah. And you may think somebody may trust you, but they really don't, until you earn that trust.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You could be talking to somebody every day. They could be somebody that texts you right now. They may not trust you yet.
I got a question for you. When you told Tim,
Kevin.
I'm Kevin, it's Tim. When you told Kevin that you were going to do 20 million year one, I'm curious to know what kind of reaction he had, if any.
He kind of laughed, actually, to be honest. But listen, Kevin was the most encouraging guy.
Sure.
He was just like, okay.
How much had he done? Where I'm trying to.
It's funny.
I know.
And I don't want to talk too much about his
Right.
stuff, but I do remember in one of his meetings that he was saying this to motivate people. He did his first million in GCI. He did his first million, and that was, I remember going,
Right
wow.
around that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was like, whoa, wow.
And that's $500,000. 20 million's $500,000 in GCI. So
Yeah.
he did 40 mil or
Yeah.
whatever, somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Roughly, yeah.
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 27's even a little north of that.
Right. Yeah.
It's cool.
But yeah, I remember that's something that I do remember vividly, that he did his first mill that year.
And he was probably in it a lot of years by then.
Yeah, he's been doing well. What I gathered from Kev is he had a love-hate with real estate, or he was going through some stuff. But he was just coming back into real estate. I think he was on his comeback trip, and he was probably in his third year of that.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
One of the things you reminded me about too is you do talk about the fear along the way, and people from the outside look at realtors that are very successful and feel like the fear is not there, which brings me to I actually don't read that many books, but it brings me back to a great. I wish I had one. I was giving away a lot, and it's one I really read because it was about that thick.
I don't read many books,
and it's called the War of Art. And
okay. So I still look up to agents, and there's this Carl Gambino. Carl, yeah, he's a monster. And I gave him some referrals out of state, which, God, that's like, I mean, he was a killer in LA. Now he's just killing it in New York and Miami, right? I'm just looking at that. But he's another agent that I look up to. But, I hit up Carl. I'm like, look, you got any, this was a year ago. Not even maybe, so I'm still,
yeah,
trying to get better, or call agents or whatever and learn or whatever. And he brought that book up.
That's cool.
Yeah, he brought that book up.
I
still haven't read it.
Okay.
I'm gonna be honest.
All right.
I gotta get in it.
No, you know what? I'll make a note of that. I'm gonna send you. A copy. I'll buy like 10 of them at a time. And the War of Art is, and actually when I wrote my book with my writing partner, one of the things we did is we wrote all these pages, and we went
in a book.
Yeah.
Well, can't wait.
It's a New York Times bestseller. We gotta get him
What's-
a copy of that.
Yeah, well,
instead.
no, if you're, give me.
Wealth
give me
can't wait.
both.
No, I'll get you both for sure.
Is it on? Is it
I'll
on
give you-
audio?
It is, and embarrassingly, I said to my co-author David Osborne, "Let's read it," and he's like, "I don't have time for that," and I'm like, "Well, we really should read it
For the audiobook portion?
Yeah, and then he's like, "All right, well, we looked at voice actors, and it was like $20,000 for like a really great voice actor." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not paying 20 G's for a voice actor when you and I should do it." And he's like, "Yeah, I agree, we should do it." Okay, so here's what we'll do. He went back to the publisher. He goes, "Give me the best you got at 5 G's." And we went through the sort of best of the worst. And, I shouldn't say that because somebody read it. We picked the one guy out that was good at the 5G level. And
He was up and coming.
and you know what? I gave in, and he goes, we need to have an audiobook. We're going to pay to have it done. And, whenever you get around to it, go in the studio and read that book. And it's been years and I haven't done it. So, you learn lessons, a lot of lessons along the way. And when I tore the book apart, we went for a reading of what we had done. We had an editor helping us. We did not have a ghostwriter for sure. And we had an editor helping us. We had written over 300 pages and my co-author is more the pessimist than me. I'm the optimist. And I'm like 6 or 7 hours into like the reading and organizing. I'm like, you know what's wrong with this book? It's terrible. That's what's wrong with this book. And they're like, come on, right? And eventually I won that argument, and I brought out and I'll tell you what it was, because you might find it interesting, is that there was a lot of prescriptive stuff in there. Meaning, here's what you need to do to have success. Here's, you have to do this. You have to, and I even to this day, I think that maybe some of that is actually pretty good. It's okay. If somebody really knows what they're doing, telling you what to do, I'll do it. Let me have at it. But it just sounded too heavy and too prescriptive. And I was like, look, there's a lot of ways to build wealth. There's a lot of ways to build wealth in real estate. And let's just talk about our journey, and let's keep it as an invitation, because an invitation is light, and do this is very heavy. So we tore the book apart on that front. And then the other thing I said is, and there's this other book I just read, The War of Art, and it's about this thick, and it's got like 60 chapters in like a little book, and it's broken into three sections. So we broke our book into 3 sections. We took it down to little chapters. But the chapters in War of Art are resistance. And by the time I get through like the 20 chapters on resistance, which is only about like 50 pages, I'm like, I'm so well versed on resistance now. Like, I'm going to throw this book out the window, And then the next section is breaking through resistance. I'm like, okay, now here we go. And it was really meaningful to me. And the reason why I even brought it up is because section 3 is turning pro. And turning pro, they used, I think, Peter Fonda as an example. Yeah, I guess you have to be really old to even know Peter Fonda, but Jane Fonda's dad, and he was one of the best live actors in the business. So Broadway, like crushed it on Broadway. And he would get so nervous before a performance that he had done even 100 times before that sometimes he would throw up. He'd be so nervous. And he's done it 100 times already and already has all the awards. And so the lesson from that is not that, see, most of us, we hit resistance and we look at the pros and go, they make it look easy, and the breaking through resistance, but just knowing that, because that's painful. Now I broke through resistance. Wow, that wasn't fun. I did it, but that wasn't fun. And then getting to the realization of, turning pro is accepting resistance, that you're going to have resistance, and knowing that you go to the path, which feels like that's what I talk about with your first deal. You didn't even know what, here's the resistance, lead-based paint. You never even heard of that, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, how do I break through the resistance? And it's like, go over and get a paint chip and figure it out. And so that's where turning pro as a skateboarder is like such a phenomenal metaphor, because turning pro as a skateboarder,
it's very,
now you've already been a pro at something. I'm gonna, we talked about Rick Pitino, Poor Hungry Driven. I'm gonna put my money on somebody who has turned pro at something, because they know. I'm just going to tell you, again, thinking about a good friend of mine. You talked about the passion that you had for skateboarding. You know, I had a very good friend who's a great author, has great life, and he was more passionate about basketball than anybody know. But guess what? He wasn't very good. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
He was so passionate about music, you know, but he just couldn't get there, you know. So, like, just the fact that you turn pro is so.
It's funny because I'm talking a lot about this to my kids right now, because I don't know. You know, there's IQ and EQ. I associate with a lot of successful people that have high EQ.
Oh, for sure.
I don't know many people that have high IQ. You know what I mean? So it's like my kid right now, he's 17. You know, he's going to go to college because, you know, there's this American way, right? You go to college, you go, you know.
We talk about this a lot.
Okay,
Sure.
I don't know if that's the right way.
I don't know that
It wasn't the right way for me.
Nah.
And if I would have went that way, I would be, I don't know where I'd be.
Tim, you're a winner, brother.
And I was going to say,
you would have, you know, even if you wouldn't have been a great student because maybe you had, you know, maybe like you
I had
just
ADD,
when you said,
ADD,
me
and
too.
I couldn't.
great.
figure it
There's
out.
so many common denominators to greatness in anything. And when you can develop those skills of what we talked about before, of resilience, of grit, of consistency, of reframing, of gratitude, those are common denominators of greatness in anything.
Yeah.
You just got to find your unique superpower, per what you said before. The link between passion and consistency is so strong. So find your passions, find your unique skills, and double down
really
on
though.
them.
Yeah.
Like that's the key to all of it, man.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hard to win where you don't have passion because what it takes to really win is so much grit that if you don't have passion for it, it's, you know,
You're fighting an uphill battle.
Oh, yeah, the whole time.
Majorly.
Yeah.
Yep. When work and play are indistinguishable,
Yes.
that's the key. And that's when you found your passions and you link your passions to your career and your profession. I mean, I think that's essential. If you don't
Absolutely.
love what you're doing, go find something else.
Right.
all right, let me, I'm looking at 245.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Farah gave me a
Right.
signal on that. Let's talk about some.
Let's
Let's
current.
talk about current
Yeah.
and you know, where are you with
now
real estate?
and where do you want to be? Yeah.
Yeah, where are you with real estate now? You're always aspirational, so I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the future too?
Correct.
Yep.
My goal for 2015 personally is over 100 million.
2025.
What year are we in?
What
year did I say?
2015.
Okay.
That's good though.
I might
Hey, I caught it, man.
Yeah, maybe I'm obsessed with that year.
I think we're gonna leave that. We're not editing that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, keep it. 2025 goal, which I don't know if, I guess, yeah, it's coming a long way from 20 mil my first year. Is 100 million this year. I've built my own roadmap on how I'm going to get there, which is, thankfully I get referrals, but open houses, my sphere, and social media. I get some from social media. But my biggest goal, other than gross sales for the year of 100, is higher price point. And that is something that this is not like this very educated answer or angle or in any regard, but it's really for me how I feel like I can is just getting out more, honestly, because it goes back to relationships and my network. I'm around so many high net worth people.
Absolutely.
I'm just really not around right now because I have a wife and kids now, and I'm kind of out there in Encino, you know, doing my own little. I work, go home, but my goal is to get into the higher price points,
And so what
the high end luxury price point.
okay, so where do you draw that line? I know it's different everywhere in the US.
How do you define that?
I guess my benchmark would be over 10 million.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, 10 million. I can say my average price point has increased as of the last 2 years, which is great. But that might be relevant to inflation. I don't know.
Is there something other than, most realtors, they're like, okay, well, I'm selling, my average price point is $1 million. And generally it'll go like this. Well, I get buyers all the time in the $2 million range, but my listings are all at sort of 1.5 and lower, whatever that is. There's always that little difference. You know, really what I want to do is I want to get the $3 million listing. And they feel like, well, it's the same. They're getting twice the money for the same amount of work. I'm never sure whether that's really true or not. But what is it about the higher price point? Is it just it's more efficient, or is there something about like selling that, you know, that $20 million house that's cooler? Or
is it the money, or is it something else, or is it a
for
combination?
me? It's just, again, it's the evolution for me. You know what I mean? My first deal was $500,000, and if I'm evolving to a $20 million sale one day, then I mean, I think that's the natural evolution for me.
That's
personally,
cool.
But you know, it's funny because there's a lot of words being spoken about in this episode, but gratitude again, because it's funny in this challenging market, which, you know, there's challenges in every market. This market just has its certain challenges right now. I know a lot of the high-end luxury guys are like, no, I need more lower-end stuff because that's what's moving right now. I'm sitting on so many of my $30 million lists.
Sure.
You know, but again, it's just, for me, a goal of mine is a higher price point just because it feels like a natural evolution for me.
And let me ask you this, because you've done several deals over $10 million. So when you think about a couple of those deals relative to $2 million deals, what difference has there been? Is there more work? Is the clientele different? I mean, if you can make some broad generalizations, I'm curious.
It's less of a headache, to be honest.
At the higher price point.
Yeah, look, sometimes, you know, and again, what gives me fulfillment is helping people, right? A lot of the times in the lower price points, you got people that are distressed, that are financially strapped, that kind of need to sell. And those are the ones where you got to watch everything, the bottom line. Everything's going to be brought up, your commissions, everything. You know, the higher price points, you're dealing with a certain level of value and net worth. You know what I mean? Where they're not, it's more of a desire to buy rather than having to sell. So less challenges is what I've experienced, really. Less challenges.
And I guess, would you say that they're also recognized, maybe value more? Like,
yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting. My experience has not always been the same, but I have, you know, I've dealt with a lot of high net worth people, and sometimes they're like,
they're tough.
What's they can be tough. Real tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they cannot be. So I guess, you know, it's you know.
For sure.
Well, sometimes too is you know, there's good cop, bad cop with the high net worth guys. You know, it's
they know how to work.
My financial advisor told me not
for
to.
sure.
Now,
you
know what I mean? I'm like, you know what? Let me talk to your financial advisor.
I like it.
Yep.
One of the things that around this table we're familiar with, and that is you do the same thing, you get the same results. And so you're talking about a move to a higher price point. What are you going to do different? Because, by the way, almost every realtor I talk to, except for Gary Gold, says they want to move their price point up. And so what are you going to do differently that's going to open those doors for you?
Well, look, you know, that's to be determined. I don't have the answer for that. But
we'll work on that.
Yeah.
I will work on that. Yeah. And we'll do it for the next episode.
Yeah.
Here's your little cliffhanger. I will say this, though. You know, spending time with my family and having the balance of work and family is extremely important to me. Because, again, my parents were never around. And remember, I'd always go to bed and pray at night. I always wanted a family.
Yep.
Now I have it, so I want to be there. I wouldn't do open houses. I'd spend my time with my family every weekend. But I remember this one open house I did, and I've been doing them ever since. This guy pulls up in a cabriolet, Volkswagen cabriolet. He's wearing cargo shorts and a raggedy T-shirt. And it was a $3 million house that I had in Los Feliz. It was a Spanish revival. Great house. You would have loved it, Paul. But at that open house, this guy walks in. I show him the house, and he goes, "Look, I'm a tough buyer. You know, I'm from England. I don't like the new construction. I want something with character and charm." And I kept his number, and he's like, "We'll most likely build something." kept talking to him, showing him, being persistent and consistent with the guy. Turns out he's Paul Lee. He's one of my best clients. He's the president of ABC.
Wow.
And I could have been like, this guy pulls up in a cabriolet, whatever.
Never
The best
judge,
guy
man.
ever. The best guy.
Yep.
Not pretentious, not super cool with me. Tattoos, like never judged me. Stayed in contact. He actually appreciated me because,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And I ended up finding what he wanted, and I've done maybe 8 deals with him.
Wow.
And it's the hustle,
He's the best.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're at that level,
But
that
he enabled me to increase my price point.
Yeah.
To go back to that. So
one relationship.
maybe, you know what I mean? Who knows where it's going to come
And
from.
it's putting yourself in those environments.
Right. I didn't do open houses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I did that one, and
Yeah.
look what came from it.
Yep.
So it's really being consistent, showing up. For me, what it is really, because it enables me to have focus because I'm super ADD, is come up with a plan. You know, building that roadmap, whether if it's a 1-3-5 year plan, 1-3-5 year plan.
Yep.
If you want to break it down into a 1-year plan, carving out that 100 million, what it looks like. I've done that. So I'm going to sit more open houses. I'm not going to be able to get in front of that person there if I'm not going out, if I'm not getting in front of these people and having that opportunity.
Yeah, expanding your horizons and putting yourself. And
Yeah,
I'm
putting
speaking about
myself out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kids school. There's all what you go to where you go
but
to
the
where
kids'
your
school
buyers and sellers are.
Yeah. The kids' school thing, though, I've done it. Like, there's 48 banners with, you know what I
We're in
mean?
LA.
All
Yeah,
the
good
dudes,
point.
like, the Tim Gavin is, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, what's
Well,
the point of
that's the-
difference?
that-
Because look, in any business, I think you need a point of difference.
That's
Going
right.
back to
Sure.
Jose Pratt's. You know what I mean? What's his point
Character
of difference?
homes. Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
A differentiator.
That's a business mindset.
Yeah. And
know what I mean?
also
Unique value proposition.
Yeah.
also going to either what our friend refers to as the white space, or there's a marketing theory called blue ocean. You know, going to where the competitors are not.
Correct.
You know, what you're saying, because I know a lot of folks that do great on school, and what you're saying is, hey, in our school, there's there are plenty of realtors they're working at. Let's go a different direction.
That is another goal of mine too, though. Is I do want to become. Back in the day, I was never a local specialist because I was getting all my business from referrals, so I'd have to go where the client took me, you know. And then my mantra back then is I'll sell anything with a bathtub in it. Now it's like I do want to focus more on my own neighborhood.
Because you value your time that much more. It's all about
That
working
and-
smarter, and then therefore, so you can have more time with your family, right?
But I do think that because I've lived in my neighborhood for 18 years,
Yeah,
I
leverage
really
that.
do feel like I am a specialist there. Like I know everything about it. And
Yeah.
So I do want to own that
Yeah.
that part of my business. I do want to evolve.
Yep. Lightning.
I think we got in a lightning round. Yeah. So we're going to ask you questions. A lot of these are deep enough that you could go on and on about, but
Are these one-word answers?
no, that doesn't have to be one word. It's
just
just
quickies.
whatever. Yeah,
Quickie.
quickies, and we'll do our best, no matter how much we love it.
I love a quickie.
Not to follow
Yep.
up.
Yep.
What's your favorite childhood memory?
I think maybe it's the one about the most like impactful would be seeing those kids skateboarding that one day, honestly, because that visual completely changed my life forever.
And is that clear right now, that visual? Wow.
Yeah.
What's your idea of perfect happiness?
Really mastering or getting really good at living in gratitude. I mean, it's a no-brainer for me.
And you're making progress.
Progress every day, but far from mastering. Far from mastering.
What talent would you most like to have?
Actually, you know, being a musician, to be honest, I know maybe you're looking for more of a profound answer than that, but honestly, what comes to mind is there seems to be this genuine happiness if you could just play music. You know what I mean? I love music, so
Likewise.
yeah.
I don't know
love
how
it.
many people
Can't
who
play.
don't. Yeah.
I can't either. I'm the guy that owns 6 guitars. I have them displayed on my wall, and I know like 3 songs.
I love
So
it.
rather than learning a new song, I'll buy a new guitar and learn my old song.
I love it.
What's the quality you most value in others?
Loyalty.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
Becoming a father.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Tim, if you take a hike, there are great hikes in LA. You take a hike, you go all the way up to the top, and you look down from that hike, and you see your family, and you see your colleagues and friends, and your whole community, and you shout one thing. What do you shout?
What up? No. I love you.
That's great.
Yeah.
We'll take both. What up?
Yeah.
And I love you.
No, I
That's
think
really
the message
sweet.
I would want them to hear is I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
We appreciate you, brother.
Thank you
Again,
so
the
much. I loved
authenticity, the gratitude, which
Yeah.
does come through. Believe me.
Oh, good.
So
Yeah.
you're definitely progressing
No, I
very,
appreciate-
very well.
I appreciate you guys allowing me to do this. It was fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just
Now
the
I'm
beginning.
in this.
And we took a little,
I'm leaving in a certain mindset right now.
Oh,
You know
that's
what I mean?
good.
So yeah.
So I get to leave the podcast thinking that, like, when we left the last meeting we had, I was like, I feel really good. That's good. And then you felt that. I felt.
Yes.
I feel. Hopefully that's the way I feel. I
connection
feel like,
and the energy was
Yeah,
there.
I feel like you.
But you remember how I looked
great.
at? I always heard your name. I've always heard of Paul Morris. It's a cool name too, Paul Morris. Like, fucking- right?
Yeah,
I mean, Josh Spitzen doesn't have the same
Nah,
ring.
it doesn't. Yeah.
Spitzen. Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
But
Thanks,
thank you
man.
guys.
Really appreciate it. Appreciate
Of
everything.
course.